over a laptop that's in a chair? No, I'm just curious how that happens. We just heard the phone. Yeah.
Hi guys, welcome. Thank you very much for being here. Before we get started and we get to today's run of show and a few opening notes, we're going to begin with a brief video presentation.
Seattle, the Emerald City, at the heart of Cascadia in the Pacific Northwest. Mountains, water, evergreen. For generations, this city has led on climate action and incubated big ideas, ideas that changed the world. One cup of coffee, one flight, one computer, one delivery, one discovery at a time. And soccer is rooted here in Cascadia, woven into the fabric of our community, dating back 100 years to the coal camps, to the first ever Vancouver-Seattle-Portland rivalries, to 50 years of our hometown club, and for the next 50. This is our home, our family, our heartbeat. And all are welcome here. All are invited here to live this passion and celebrate joy. Yes, we celebrate our victories, but continue to fight for what matters most, understanding that the game is bigger than the pitch, fighting for a more equitable future for everyone, convinced in who we are and what we believe. We believe that play is human and every child's right. We believe that Seattle can drive the next generation of growth in soccer. And we believe that the World Cup can be accessible to all. For the game, for the fans, for the world, Seattle is ready. Seattle.
Okay, again, thank you all for being here today. We are so pleased to welcome in the FIFA delegation for today's official press conference. Quick notes on run of show. I'll briefly introduce all of the panelists here today, and we'll hear opening remarks from a select few of them. We do have a very tight schedule today as the official delegation visit continues. There are some meetings that some folks on the panel are going to need to get to, so we'll be tight on some of the media Q&A portion for some panelists, and then we'll go a little longer for some others. But to begin, on today's panel, we have immediately seated to my left, U.S. Soccer men's national team, former goalkeeper, and Sounders FC former captain Casey Keller. To his left, we have Adrian Hanauer, Seattle 2026 Executive Committee Chair and Seattle Sounders FC owner. To Adrian's left is Victor Montagliani, Concacaf President and FIFA Vice President, followed by Colin Smith, FIFA Chief Tournaments and Events Officer. To Colin's left is Beth Knox, who is the President of the Seattle Sports Commission. And last and certainly not least is Amy Griffin, who is another U.S. soccer legend for the United States women's national team. And we are thrilled to have all of them again here today. For opening remarks, we're going to start with Adrian Hanauer, Seattle 2026 Executive Committee Chair. Adrian, go ahead.
Thanks, Alex. Well, thank you all for being here. It's our honor, privilege to be in this position. One of the cities trying to bring the most important sporting event on the planet to Seattle. as a kid who was born and raised here and saw Bellevue as a farm and Seattle with a very different skyline and you know, type of city that it is today, I'm not sure I ever imagined that we'd be in this position, but we are. I'd like to welcome FIFA, Concacaf, U.S. Soccer, the Canadian Soccer Federation, who've been here touring our city, touring our facilities, meeting with our groups. We've had very productive conversations. We've endeavored to show them why this city is the greatest city in the world and that it is a place that the World Cup should come. We feel very good about the city and all it has to offer. And ultimately, we will continue to work with and dialogue with U.S. Soccer, FIFA, and hopefully bring this home for our city. So again, welcome to you. It's been a pleasure to work with you these days. We look forward to continuing to endeavor to convince you that this is the greatest city on the planet and that the World Cup in 2026 should be here. So with that, I think I will pass it off to Victor to provide a few other comments.
Thanks, Adrian. Good afternoon to everyone. It's a very pleasure to be here in Seattle, a football city, or a soccer city as we know, not only now but historically. It's always supported the beautiful game. From grassroots to the Sounders, regardless of any league the Sounders have ever played in, dating back to 1974. And I want to wish all the best to Brian and your team tonight. I know you have a big game. Maybe on the weekend I won't wish you so much luck against Vancouver, but tonight I'll wish you luck. You know, we've been not only very impressed by the city, but Adrian and his team. You know, the hospitality that was shown, but also the presentation that we had yesterday. It was a very thoughtful and thought-provoking presentation that really encapsulated what Seattle not only is, but really has become. As we saw by the video, Adrian just alluded to it, what Seattle was when he was a young boy and what has really become in terms of the social responsibility, but also what sport means in your community. So, and we all know that at the end of the day, and on this journey that we've had, seeing all the candidate cities, one thing that's resonated in the U.S. is what 94 meant. I keep hearing it over and over from you know, players that, you know, went on to become legends like Casey to my right, and what 94 meant and how that lit the pilot light of a lot of young players to go on to be involved in the game. And from a FIFA perspective, but also from a Concacaf perspective, and as a fellow North American, I think 2026 not only will do that, but I think we'll do it at another level. And so we look forward to that. Obviously, we have a process here in the selection and process. Colin will go into more technical details, but we're very pleased with the foot that has been put forward, or the 2 feet that have been put forward by Seattle and Adrian and his team. So thank you very much.
Next in opening remarks, we'll hear from Colin Smith. Colin?
Okay, good morning. Good morning. Here, yeah. Good morning, everyone. It's great to be here in Seattle in what is the last stop on this second leg of touring the cities. As Victor said, we had a great presentation yesterday, very comprehensive indeed, and a big thank you to Adrian, Maya, Beth, and the whole Seattle team for the work that they've done, not only in preparation for this visit, but over the last couple of years where we've had to work remotely, unfortunately. So we've been able to keep the momentum going, and we very much appreciate the commitment throughout the entire process. The presentation yesterday, as I said, was very comprehensive. We look, you know, within the magical experience of a FIFA World Cup, as with any complex project, it's made up of details at the end of the day and people delivering details. And so what we were looking at are areas such as accommodation, transport, obviously the stadium, and I'll come to that in a second. But sustainable event management is a key cornerstone of any World Cup now. It was a cornerstone of the World Cup bidding process before US, Canada and Mexico were appointed. And this is obviously something that then we've rolled out and is part of this selection process as well. So Seattle, very much a leading force already in sustainable event management, and that's just simply great to see. Over the last couple of days, we've had the opportunity to see venues live, which is always very beneficial. So here with the game yesterday and the Climate Pledge Arena, and to see, you know, the different sustainable management practices ongoing live is obviously very beneficial, and you know, congratulations to everyone involved with those. The stadium ultimately is where we play. Here we have to provide the best conditions possible for the best players in the world to perform at the highest level. And so first and foremost, we start with the pitch. Obviously it's an artificial pitch for the moment. Hopefully we can convince beyond World Cup 26, should we come here, that grass is the way forward. But we talked about some modifications that we'll need to make for the dimensions of the pitch. They're minor in this stadium. It's already wider in many areas than some of the other stadiums. And we also talked about the processes and systems that we would need to put in place to guarantee the best pitch possible. Other areas of the stadium that we toured, again, we look at our constituent groups from media, broadcasters, sponsors, fans, and we just look at all the different areas and how we would use a venue like this on match day. So here, obviously, for any questions, this, as I say, wraps up our second leg. We've got one more leg starting in a couple of weeks, and that will round up all those visits. And certainly the decision's getting harder and harder with every stop, which I guess is a good problem to have. So thank you very much.
Thank you all for your opening remarks. As I mentioned off the top, we are on somewhat of a tight schedule today, so I may suggest as we now get into the media Q&A period, if there are questions for Victor and Colin, I would front load those because we'll be saying goodbye to them a little bit sooner in the proceedings. The remaining panelists will be here for a little bit longer. So at this time, if there are questions from the media gallery, we'll certainly begin taking those, and there will be a photo opportunity at the end before Colin and Victor have to move on to their next round of meetings. Tim Booth, I saw your hand first. There is a microphone coming around for the live stream. Kelly Schutz is on that side, and Kevin Kay is on the other.
Colin, when you're looking at all these different sites, what are the differentiators that you are looking for that's going to separate one city from another as a potential host? And your third leg, what are the venue or cities you're going to be visiting for that third leg of site visits?
Let me take that one first before I forget the order that we're in. So we're doing Edmonton because there's a match, and then we're going down to Mexico City, Guadalajara, Los Angeles, and then finishing in Toronto. I think that's all. Yeah. Differentiating factor. That's not the first time I've been asked that question. And look, there's not one factor. Ultimately, it's a bit of a jigsaw puzzle of all these different areas. You know, we break down, to break down the magic of a World Cup is obviously incredibly difficult. So the only way to do it is really to look at all the constituent groups. What is their journey? What does a fan want? What do media need? What do broadcasters need to perform their jobs? What VIP guests, hospitality guests? And we basically follow that chain through, you know, from arrival at an airport, what's their stay in the city, and then what's the experience at the stadium. And we look at all the component parts of that. So it's not really a question of differentiating, it's about how would we make whatever setup in a particular city, because everywhere's different, every venue's different, how would we make it work in that particular site? And it also comes down to the soft factors. It comes down to people. It comes down to experience of hosting major events. It comes down to, you know, the communities and legacy aspects as well. So it really is a broad spectrum. Ultimately, when we choose our venues, we also have to factor in the different time zones. We have to factor in travel distances for teams. We have to factor in climatic conditions. So there's a lot of different elements will go into the decision.
Okay, reminder, just a quick show of hands if you do have a question. The next one I saw was Matt Pence, but thank you for, I got the other hands. Kelly will bring the mic over to Matt.
My question's also for Colin. You mentioned travel being a factor as well as time zones. Is there any preference for having every region covered versus, I know there are certain areas of the countries where there are kind of pods of cities. How does that factor into your guys' decision making?
Yeah, look, it's you know, the geographic footprint of US, Canada, Mexico is by far the largest footprint that we've ever had for a World Cup. And obviously for fans and teams, we don't want people having to crisscross, you know, all over the length and breadth between every match. So it's a factor in terms of we will look at that. We will look at having consistency of travel for starting with the teams. Obviously, we need them to perform at their highest level, and you know they can only do that if they have A, sufficient rest days between their matches, but B, that we're not overly burdening them with travel. So we'll break down the different venues, the different regions, the different time zones. We'll look at clusters, and we'll come up with the right mix.
I believe I saw Jeremiah O'Shan next. He is in the back left on my side. Yep, Kelly's got him.
Yeah,
Where am I looking?
I guess for whoever can answer it, like how do you go about weighing the importance of the pitch and what changes, if you can get into what changes need to happen for this to be suitable?
Yeah.
You know, when we're talking about the World Cup with the best players in the world playing in the most important sporting event in the world, the pitch is everything. So the pitch is sacrosanct, and not only the pitch where they play their matches, but also the training pitches. They also have to be at the highest level, because at the end of the day, all the work that we're doing here, whether it's FIFA, whether it's the organizing committee, whether it's the cities, whether it's the corporate community, is for one thing, it's to set the stage for the drama of football that is played out by 22 players on the pitch. And that's why over 1 billion people watch. They're not watching us and me in the stands or watching Colin walk around the stadium to make sure everything's going on. All we do is to prepare for that moment. So the pitch is everything. And in terms of what needs to happen here, this is the meeting that was referred to after. We're going to do a review of everything we've seen, not just as it relates to the stadium or the pitch, but also transportation, accommodation. All the categories are going to be reviewed at our meeting this afternoon in terms of what are some of the areas that we need to cover off. And the local organizing committee will then obviously look into that in terms of what are the solutions to whatever challenges they are. So I think it would be probably a little bit prejudicial to say any of those, because I haven't, Colin's going to be asking those questions this afternoon. So we'll wait for those questions when we sit down with Adrian and the team this afternoon. But in the end, it's you know, as I say, business is about location, location, location. Well, football is about pitch, pitch, and pitch. So.
Okay, again, show of hands is helpful. I am notating everyone here that has a question. Jada, did you have one? Kevin can bring the mic over, unless Kelly's already got it. Kevin's got it.
Thank you can you hear me? Is it on?
Yep.
Okay, thanks. Thank you. For Colin, wanted to ask, is there, when you're talking about like the need for grass here, is there a concern about like future plans? Like, does a city have to have future stadium plans or grass plans or anything like that done at a certain time period? And then the second thing is, when do you want to have all your decisions made, your cities announced?
No, I mean, post-World Cup, obviously it's up to club and stadium owners to decide, you know, what surface works best for them. You know, the condition of the pitches that we will have for a World Cup, I think, will be very compelling. So I think club owners and stadium owners will have a decision to make. But no, our focus is obviously on the World Cup, and there, obviously, it's grass, and not just grass, it's the highest quality. And there, what we're looking for, just a little bit more detail on that, is consistency of playing surfaces. So we've got many different cities, many different climatic conditions. We'll also have different types of grass in order to cope with those conditions. but the consistency of play on those pitches will be guaranteed. Okay, so that's what we look for across all. Your second question, the decision time. We are aiming to have all the information we need by the end of this year, and then looking to make the announcement around the end of Q1, end of March, April time next year is kind of the planning at the moment.
Time for a few more questions that relates to Colin and Victor. And again, the remaining panelists will have time for further questions beyond that. The next hand we have is Larry Stone from the Seattle Times.
Just a quick logistical question for Colin. How many cities do you plan to choose, and how many games will be staged in each venue?
One will depend on the other. We haven't set the final amount yet. You know, around 16, but there is no set amount. We'll have obviously we need to finish these visits, and then ultimately we'll decide what's the right mix of cities, what's the number of cities. Yeah, and the second part was the number of games. Yeah, again, it depends on the locations. It depends on the overall number. I guess it's typically between 3 and 6, but nothing. You know, again, we will look at that as a function of the decision process. But the match schedule and the number of games will then come at a later process after that.
We'll take one more from Diego Arioja from Univision Seattle before we break for our photo opportunity. And again, we'll have further questions with the remaining panelists after the photo op. Diego, go ahead.
This is for Colin. How important is for a candidate host city to have the experience hosting previous important soccer tournaments?
Yeah, it is important. Look, the stadiums themselves are obviously very experienced outfits across the US in particular, and you know, to have the experience of cities, host committees who have already worked together, multi-agency task forces from security, sustainable event management, you know, it is helpful if these entities are, you know, already set up, established, who have experience to work together. If they weren't there, we would create them. It's not a, you know, this is not a deal breaker, but certainly it's helpful if cities have such structures and have such experience in the past. It allows all the different agencies and authorities involved to have an idea, you know, as to what would be required in terms of resourcing and time.
Okay, we'll pause quickly for a quick photo opportunity and exchange of pennants. If our panelists could please rise for one moment, and we'll do a quick pennant exchange. We'll hit the cameras there in the back. We'll crunch everyone in. Corky, I see ya, and B-roll as well is totally fine.
Please stand down in the front row, photographer. No, stay right there.
Okay, thank you for bearing with us during a somewhat unique run of show. We will continue the Q&A period for our remaining panelists. Again, thank you to Victor, thank you to Colin for joining us. We know they're off to their next round of meetings. As you can see, Casey Keller, Adrian Hanauer, Beth Knox, Amy Griffin, all available for further questions. And I have a list here from several of you. And again, if I missed anybody, raise your hand and we'll try to get through everyone. Nico Moreno, I believe you were next.
Hey, Alex, can I just,
of course.
I wanted to go into, you know, letting them get into a little bit more depth in terms of what we were trying to convey yesterday and today. And by the way, you know, having athletes who have performed at the highest level is fantastic, who've been there, done that, and can provide that sort of wisdom and insight. So thank you for being here. Beth, obviously, on behalf of the Seattle Sports Commission, has been a great partner as well. So I just wanted to go back in time a little bit. This has been an ongoing process. There have been a lot of people, a lot of different organizations involved in helping us get this far. Local organizing committee, but this has been at the public level, certainly from our mayor to King County Executive Dow Constantine, Governor Inslee, and the entire federal delegation have been supportive of this effort. So really want to recognize them. At the corporate level, some of the biggest, most important companies on the planet are located here. Some of the best innovation happens here. Some of the most interesting small companies originate here that are not household names yet, but will be by the time the World Cup comes here. And ultimately, the fans. This has been largely a conversation and a demonstration of our fans and how they support the game. So we basically came up with a vision and centered that around 3 words: soccer, innovation, everyone. That we believe Seattle stands out among all cities in this country for its devotion and adoption and foundation of soccer, starting way before I or any of us, quite frankly, got involved in this game. Back to the 1800s with coal miner camps, the original Sounders, youth soccer, women's youth soccer will celebrate its 50th anniversary with Washington Youth Soccer next year, one of the oldest in the country. And then ultimately, yes, the Sounders and OL Reign and the professional game. But along the way, fans have supported this game immensely. And certainly, we wanted to demonstrate and convey that whether Switzerland plays Ghana or Mexico plays Brazil, our fans will be here to support and fill the stadium. Innovation, again, probably doesn't need a whole lot of elaboration with this group, but we tried to demonstrate that we think big in this community, in this region. We don't think about making a few airplanes. We think about transforming the commercial aviation industry. We don't think about selling some stuff online. We created the whole category of online retail. We didn't try to help with some software that people ultimately used in their computers. We revolutionized personal computing. And it's not only things; it is ideas. It's the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, not trying to slow down the spread of malaria or polio, but working to eradicate it. It's Earth Day, starting here. Environmental movements, and it's that sort of innovation that really sets this place apart. And ultimately, everyone. We want this event to be an open tent to everyone. Everyone in this state, in this region, is able to participate in some way in this event, whether through fan fests, being in stadiums, somehow connecting and leaving a legacy. Because a big piece of the World Cup coming to a community, a city, is the legacy that it leaves beyond. And so we've been really thoughtful in how that may play out in the aftermath of a World Cup coming to Seattle. So, sorry. I just wanted to go into a little bit more detail as to kind of our thought process and how we've made our presentations, and tried to convince FIFA, Concacaf, that U.S. Soccer, that not only is the infrastructure, the climate, all of the basics of this place special, but the innovative spirit, the fan base, the diversity is really what sets us apart. And then finally, because look, it is a business. You know, operational excellence is a big piece to the puzzle. The stadiums, the training sites, how we operate a World Cup, a giant event like this. We have experience at this in this city. We can do this, and I believe that we can be the best city in North America as a host for the 2026 World Cup. So thank you for indulging me in a little more depth in the conversations over the past couple of days.
Okay, I believe, Nico, you had the next question. I know there are questions for all the panelists out there, so we'll get to them. Nico, please go ahead. Kevin Kay is going to pass you the mic.
Thank you, Adrian. You kind of already touched on it a little bit, but I wanted to know, and I wanted to ask Colin, how much do you feel like that passion, that culture that is ingrained into the city will weigh in on this decision? I mean, you just kind of talked about it, but from street pitches to the way that the community just embraces soccer in general.
Yeah, look, obviously I can't speak for Colin and FIFA, but we did try to lay out a story that was compelling about the culture and the ecosystem and the relevance of soccer in this market. You know, we're also lucky enough to have a lot of people around us who have been in this game for a long time and are still connected in our community to the sport. You know, again, it isn't about me, but I was able to start yesterday with a photo of me as an 8-year-old with John Best in 1974. That this is personal for a lot of us. You know, yeah, we get it. It's business, but I'm really lucky to have people around me for whom this really is a personal ambition and endeavor, and it isn't checking the box on hosting a big event in Seattle. And so I believe that they heard that passion and commitment that goes along with it.
Okay, we'll go over to Mickey Turner there next. I think Kelly might be closest with that mic.
Can you hear me? Yeah. This question is for Beth as the head of the Sports Commission. Just wanted to get your thoughts on attracting, private partners to kind of put events like this together, as well as, put your best foot forward in front of FIFA. And also, could you talk about kind of what you see as when you want to have that final pitch available, ready for FIFA to say, here we are, this is what we can bring as a host city?
Well, we are in a position now, so let me start with the Seattle Sports Commission has a dual purpose of supporting our sports community and attracting premier sporting events. So the opportunity to work with the Sounders and Lumen Field and so many other partners, the City of Seattle has been just a tremendous asset in this pitch and bid effort. So this really brings great visibility on a global stage for our region, and then it's also the myriad of byproducts that will result if we were to be awarded this event. Certainly economic impact and the connection with the region here and the benefits that they'll receive. But it's also, it's what Adrian talked about, it's the kids that will then have that opportunity to play soccer and to be part of this major event. So I think that now the next phase is for us to respond to any of the questions that came out of this visit with FIFA. We have presented our final pitch. We have shown them all the venues and how we would execute. And now they'll have more questions, of course, now that they've seen it in person. We will respond to those and ensure that it's met to their satisfaction, and then we'll wait for their decision.
Okay, we'll go over to Dave Clark next. I know he had one, and then we'll go to Jackson Feltz. Jada, I see you down there for follow-up. And I promise those of you that raise hands the first time we'll get through. Dave, go ahead.
For Casey and Amy, you're both World Cup athletes. What would it mean for future World Cup athletes to have an event such as this in front of them, between the training facilities and just the motivation knowing that there's a World Cup in their region?
Tag your head first.
Am I on? Okay. You know, for myself, obviously growing up here as Adrian did, and you know, seeing that if your home city has the opportunity to host a World Cup, it's obviously massive. Myself having, you know, a long history in World Cups, going back to being able to be a part of 87, 89 Youth World Cups, and then 90, 98, 2000, 2006, and kind of see some of those things that FIFA have changed. And are really now trying to focus on, and how, you know, our city are able to accommodate that. Where, you know, I remember in 90 being more or less in a dorm room practicing on a pitch that, you know, I wouldn't want my kids to play on. Going into, you know, 98, and, you know, where we were hosted, not having the facility that we liked, so then having to travel an hour each way to find a better training facility that accommodated the team better. And then seeing in 2002, 2006, that getting better. But then even in 2006, you know, we were in central Hamburg based, and then had to truly drive with a ridiculous security detail with helicopters over our buses and all kinds of crazy things, 45 minutes out of the city each way to then have training where, you know, you just look at what Seattle could accommodate right now, and I just off the top of my head, from VMAC to Seattle U to the Seahawks old training facility to Starfire to just where you would be that close proximity from where your team would want to stay to then where you could train and have these abilities. And so I think Seattle is so uniquely set up to be able to accommodate so many teams, not only from teams that have decided to say, okay, we want to be our center. Because a lot of times what teams will do is they will have one area, and they'll say, this is our home, and we'll get here early, and this will be where we'll train. Then we'll travel to different cities to play our matches, but we'll always come back to this home base. So the combination between being able to be such a phenomenal home base for teams, but then also have the accommodation for teams that are coming in for a day or two just to play their match and go. So I see such huge benefits for this that this city has to offer, you know, for both those abilities. We know that the pitch in this stadium will be tremendous, so I'm not even worried about that. You know that'll be great. We know that the fans have been here from day one in all aspects. I played in you know, going back to 1990, where, okay, we drew Italy, so we knew in Rome we had a full stadium. But playing in other stadiums with, lucky if it was half filled. You know, same in Korea. If we hadn't been a host nation, drawing a host nation and playing that, you know, having a half-empty stadiums, and then seeing the difference in Germany in 2006 with the close proximity and the travel, and I think 20,000 Americans traveled to Germany for that World Cup. And you know that where we are located here in Seattle, to be able to have Asian Rim countries come over, to be able to then Canada come down if you're Canadian fans, and all around. Look, obviously I'm a little bit biased, but I just don't know how FIFA could look at everything that this city has to offer and from that infrastructural side. And as a player, being able to see how much better it would be than some of the World Cups that I had been in the past.
I don't know if am I on? Yep. Can you hear me now? I'd have to say you had me at least you had helicopters to make sure you were safe. But as far as the venue goes, I'm gonna take this back from a kid's perspective. I mean, I gravitated to soccer not because my brother played, because he didn't, and not because there was a women's team for me to watch. I gravitated to it because it was the community. It was what the community was doing. And what a great thing for such a huge city to have that community feel. I went to the Sounders game, and for every A on my report card that I got, my mom would say, you get to go to the Sounders game. And so this community has never lost that. When the NASL left, all those guys were my coaches, and they all stayed. And now I'm coaching their kids and their kids' kids. And so from a community feel, I can't imagine the inspiration and the motivation. If I got to the level I was because I got to watch the Sounders, the player pool is here. I've seen the guys in the Sounders Academy. I've seen them step on this pitch and get the W for the men. And the same goes for the women. So that spark for all of the hundreds of thousands of kids that are playing in the Pacific Northwest area to have a firsthand close look at what this really looks like at the world stage will only make this player pool even better and more exceptional and extraordinary. And it is pretty awesome right now. If you look at the historical pieces that Washington State has put on the global level, it's pretty incredible. So for me, I think having this venue here, and like Casey said, I mean, I've watched Casey train, and I've brought my kids to watch Casey train. That's already in place. So now if we can get the World Cup here, the rest is yet to come, right?
Okay, we are on to Jackson Feltz. I think Matt's bringing your mic.
Check. There we go. This is for Beth, and perhaps Adrian, you can comment as well. Colin mentioned Climate Pledge Arena, and obviously we're here and the Seahawks played yesterday. I'm wondering what role the other Seattle sports teams are playing, what kind of support that they are giving in this bid overall.
Well, I can tell you that every single one of our professional sports teams, as well as our major universities here in Seattle, are in full support of this bid. And they have all offered up, from the moment we started sharing ideas during COVID to all through this point, they have so graciously shared policies, best practices, ideas, and ultimately they understand that supporting each other's independent success generates that greater success for all. So it's been exciting to work with them. We shared with FIFA that they are a competitive bunch as it relates to setting the bar high. And Climate Pledge Arena is a great example. Lumen Field certainly represents that pinnacle of technology and innovation. And so it's been a great inspiration for FIFA to see that show of support from all of our pro teams. They really appreciated being able to see firsthand at Climate Pledge Arena some of that technology and innovation that has been brought to light here with the recent opening. So we're very proud to be part of this team. I think it's very unique on a national level, certainly to have a city where every single one of the pro teams are supportive and collaborative and aligned with each other. That doesn't mean that they don't compete on some level, but ultimately they want this to happen for us.
Go over here to the second row to Masvita Marer.
What she said.
Hey, I guess this one is for Adrian. How important was it to have the input of Casey and obviously Amy? And then specifically to you, how do you see this helping World Cup coming here? Because the World Cup is really in the community, into the U.S. Deaf Soccer Association, which you currently are the head coach.
So can you repeat?
Yeah, how do you see FIFA, giving more spotlight in terms of the team you currently coach right now?
Well, I think, I do coach the U.S. Deaf Women's National Team, and I think inclusivity is a huge it's a huge bucket that needs to be filled across the world. And I think the notoriety and being under that umbrella eventually will, just the fact that, right now for U.S. Soccer, we're not even under U.S. Soccer's umbrella. So that has to happen first as far as an extended national teams. But anytime there's a platform where we can speak on behalf of that, I think it will be, we'll be able to make huge strides. And since I'm the leader of that and actually speak on behalf of the Sports Association as far as the deaf community goes, I think that it'll only move forward. But right now, our first goal is to get under U.S. Soccer's umbrella.
Go.
I think Adrian mentioned it earlier that it was a 50th anniversary of Washington State women's soccer. Well, understanding how it's steps. My kids were born in England. They lived in Spain. They lived in Germany and back in England. My daughter's 24 years old. There wasn't a girls' team for her to play on in those 3 countries when she grew up. And now look in what's happening with the women's game in those countries and how it progresses. And again, it's those little steps. You then, growing up watching NASL Sounders, going to games, going to Tacoma Stars games, and then having the opportunity to come back and be part of the Sounders, and then have my kids then want to, go to an MLS Cup final, to go to, things like that. It's just little stepping stones. And for us to host a World Cup and have the kids locally be able to be a part of that, not just seeing it on TV, but to be able to go to fan zones, be able to go to the stadium potentially, to be able to be a part of that, to see the little motorcades of the teams go to their trainings. And it's all one more giant step and of the continuation of this sport becoming more and more mainstream. And so I'm excited for potentially, for those kids to just be a part of something so cool.
Time for a few more, and then I know a couple of these panelists need to go to some other meetings in the building. Felipe, I don't believe you've asked your question yet. Kev, you're probably closest to him.
Very good. Thank you. So, Adrian, for what you talked with the officials from Concacaf and FIFA, the geographical location of Seattle being too close to Vancouver, does that have any weight on the decision making as you talk to them?
I don't know. I think Colin, addressed it sort of, but I don't want to speculate as to the geographic location. All I know is that Seattle is in a great part of the country with great climate, and is a great place to play soccer. So Vancouver's also got a nice climate and great place to play soccer. So I don't know how FIFA is thinking about it in terms of the geography.
We'll come back for follow-ups here. Yeah, Jade, I saw you. We'll go to you, and then Tim Booth from the AP.
Thanks. This question is for you, Adrian. I know that, I'm getting a feel that y'all aren't worried about the pitch, but since Victor did say that that's paramount, can we talk about grass? I mean, when would you put it in, or what's the process, I guess, behind that, and cost, or just that avenue. I mean, since it's paramount, and what kind?
Yeah,
You're talking.
Yeah. Thanks, James. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt. No, look, it is paramount. It's, as Victor said, it's point 1, 2, and 3, and we will address it. Our friends from Lumen Field are here. We're committed. It is part of the requirement that the stadium authority put in if we were to get a World Cup here. So it will happen if we are so lucky as to host in 26. In terms of timing and systems and cost, I think we're a little premature, but it'll be done.
Follow up just a little bit. Are you saying then that you would have to be selected first for it to be put in? You don't have to have it in first to be selected?
No, correct. We would get selected first and then put it in, because selection should happen March, April, and then we've got a few years to solve.
Jada, if you can pass the mic to Tim there to your right, that would be awesome. Thank you. Go ahead, Tim.
I'll follow up on what Jada said. Would that be a permanent system, Adrian, or would you go to a permanent grass system in here, or would you go to sort of the tray system that you guys used for Copa America?
It'll be a FIFA decision. They have technical parameters by which they'll require consistent fields across stadiums around the country. So I don't know the technical aspects right now. I don't suspect it's a layover the synthetic. It's more significant than that. So, but it is, it's an even playing field. FIFA is looking at a lot of NFL stadiums. Most of them have synthetic. So this isn't, this is, in my mind, this is not the most critical piece to the bid, because there are, I don't know, 7 other NFL stadiums or something under consideration.
Okay, we got time we'll take 2 more. Yes, right there next to Matt.
This question is for Adrian. When Seattle be chosen, do you know how many dates or games will be played?
No, we don't. That was an easy one. More like that one, please.
Since that was so short, we'll go with 2 more. Dave, go ahead. I see you have a follow-up.
Similar to the grass question, Adrian, how important are training facilities, the potential future Seattle Sounders training facility, or the potential stadium at Tacoma? How important are those to the bid?
Again, I don't want to speak for FIFA, but training facilities are very important. You heard Victor, I believe, or maybe Colin talk about those pitches also needing to be perfect or of the highest quality. So we have been working on this for a couple of years. We will continue to work on it. We've talked about a potential Sounders training facility at some point, whether a redo of Starfire or beyond that, and certainly with 5 years of runway, we believe that is certainly going to be in the picture as well.
But I think something that people don't understand is too, like, take for example the German Federation. The German Federation will choose what city they want to have as their permanent training facility. They will come in several years before and build 2 pitches to the spec of the finals stadium. Whatever grass surface is in the final, whatever dimensions of the final, they will build those for their team before they come. They're so confident that we're going to play in the final that they will then build to that spec. So there are other federations that are very proactive in that as well, not just the host nations in having to provide that for certain countries.
Okay, we'll go last question to Jeremiah Oshan there in the back, and then I'll end with a couple of closing notes. Jeremiah, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know who best to answer this, but it had been mentioned that there's some infrastructure stuff going into the city here, whether that goes beyond the pitch. I'm just kind of curious, what sort of infrastructure items or what kind of legacy items, I guess that was the term that was used, was legacy, but what kind of legacy elements do you think will persist beyond 2026?
I can take a shot at that. So the infrastructure, I would say, is slightly different from the legacy, but infrastructure requirements, airports, transportation, hotels, security, things like that. The legacy is that this committee, along with FIFA, we will invest in the game and its legacy, and something as simple as the current Rave Foundation objective to build 26 mini pitches across the state by 2026. That will get amplified and a bit more energy. Fan fests that may need to be erected or built that could last beyond the World Cup. Some facilities that Casey talks about. Maybe there is a federation that puts money into infrastructure, and I guess without sounding corny, I mean, I hope that it is an emotional legacy. It is a once in a lifetime opportunity for my 5-year-old, who will be 10, if my math is right, to participate in a World Cup and have that memory for his entire life. So, those are the kinds of, that is the kind of legacy that we talk about after a World Cup.
And Alex, I'll just add on the infrastructure piece that we are at an exciting time in our region here. There are so many things that are currently in development. Of course, the waterfront development is underway and will be completed by 2024. There's other opportunities where we can partner with the city, with the region, and use this World Cup event as a means to galvanize that development and to create an infrastructure that not only supports World Cup, but it also supports our MLB All-Star Game in 2023 and future events that we hope to bring here. So the infrastructure piece is critical, and all of those partners are equally excited about working with us to use this as a great momentum and incentive to finish those infrastructures and really make a quality experience for people that come here.
Okay, I know.
But I also think that having been in these World Cups, is the infrastructure is something that the U.S. has in abundance over so many of the other countries that FIFA has had to host. So I think it makes it so much easier as well for FIFA to come to America and have these situations available where they don't have to then spend 10 years to try to build it to bring it to a spec. So, and if we can improve on it, awesome.
Okay, I know some of these folks need to get up to other meetings, so I'm going to say thank you one more time and to all of you for being here. Just a couple of closing reminders. We have lunch upstairs for everybody here, so if you're hungry, please go up to the Southwest Loft. There are also commemorative scarves, Seattle 2026 scarves for everyone, so we hope you can take those. And as a reminder, if you are staying for the Galaxy game tonight to cover it, the press box is open. You're welcome to file stories. Stay as long as you like. We'll be around to answer any questions.
The barista's up there, so you might need to fill up with some coffee if you're going to.
The barista's up there. And lastly, if Casey and Amy are willing, we might do some more media availability at the backdrop over there, and I might volunteer our head coach of the Sounders, Brian Schmetzer. Thank you again.